This is a public order for a potential decision that the board has before them on a district recommendation. First, we're going to begin tonight by introducing ourselves. My name is Kristen. I'm the president of the Durango Board of Education, and I have here with me tonight Erica Brown, our vice president, and I have Andrea Parmenter, our secretary. And we have a couple of our student board members. We have Colin Crowdis, our lead board member, and Katie Box, our other student board member. The plan for this evening is first we're going to hear a presentation. Grace. Oh, Grace. Okay, and we have been saying Grace, our newest board member, so this is true in this moment because well, we have Grace knowledge of this evening as well. Grace was appointed to the board just a couple months ago. All right, so the plan for this evening is that first we're going to hear a presentation from Dr. Karen Chester for the school consolidation. This is a newly revised presentation, so if you've seen a presentation before, this is a newly revised proposal that is before the board at this time. The purpose of this is so that you have the exact same information as the board on this matter. Then after the presentation, I will read our public comment guidelines, and we will hear from you. If you have questions along the way, please email us at schoolboard@durangoschools.org. The Board of Education wants you to know that we do value public input. This is a part of most of our processes in big decision making. We're also a student-focused board, as evidenced by our student board members that we include in our work. We hear from students each month at our work sessions, and it's so exciting to hear all the things they're doing at every campus. And we are always focused on the outcomes for students. That's a great responsibility that we all take part in. So I also want you to know where the board is at in this process. We've had some questions about that. We have heard the presentation. We've been presented with a new presentation about school consolidation. We are considering all angles of school consolidation, and we have not yet made a decision. We did decide at our last meeting we will have an option for decision at our meeting on May 11th. It will be held at Sunnyside Elementary School at 5:30 p.m. Collecting stakeholder feedback and hearing from stakeholders throughout this time is very important to us. And we thank you so much for coming out on a school night, some of you with your students, and we can't wait to hear from you this evening. I want to welcome Dr. Karen Chester to present the newly revised recommendation. So welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. Again, some of you, I know this is maybe your second or your third meeting, and this is really rough. We have lots of things to do at the end of the year. This just shows how much you care about your school, about your community, and I shouldn't say just Sunnyside, but really Mesa, and how much you care just about the future of our kids. This is not something I say over and over again, and not in a million years would I ever do this. Right? This is not something any of us would talk about. It would have been much easier and much calmer for us not even to bring this up. Unfortunately, we are in a situation where we have to look at everything, and I'll talk a little bit about the different committees that have been meeting that have made this recommendation, and so that it is my responsibility to bring that forward. Our goal is for every single child to feel like they belong, for them to have amazing experiences, for them to be successful, for them to have all our postgraduate competencies, and not just our students, but our staff, and then our families, for our families to feel like they are a valuable part of our school district. So I'm just going to go through the presentation, so you've heard a lot of this, that there are some changes, so just want to make sure you know that. We are talking about Sunnyside, and it is part of a larger conversation. So I just want to make sure that we're really aware of that. Long Range Planning Committee met last night. They are the final revisions of about a 20-some page policy process. It has to look at replacements of schools and consolidation of schools over the long haul for the next several years. We are in a situation with our declining enrollment that this isn't just about Sunnyside, this is about our entire school district and what can we continue to afford. One of the things we talk about is we do receive $11,800 per student for funding, period. So anytime we go over $11,800 on a
don't have that funding. So we do have to look at then where are all the other ways we can make cuts. And that's obviously what's happened in our district. We've cut 30.6 district office positions. We did increase the class size, one at 5th grade, one at middle school, and 2 in high school. And then when we apply that to our shrinking enrollment, that does mean that we have had, unfortunately, had to reduce positions. We've lost over 60 English learners and multilingual learners, which means we've had to reduce that support. And so this is part of a comprehensive overall view and look. This isn't just about really looking at one school consolidation as the answer. It's multi-pronged. And so you'll be hearing more about that and that process and that policy that committee has been looking at. But we've tried many things to try to increase the enrollment at all of our schools that are more outlying schools. And I just, obviously we're talking about Sunnyside tonight, so I just want to continue to go over sort of the history of this. We know that there's a lot of conversation about some of our smaller schools and possibly closing for years, way before I got here. And so when I got here 5 years ago, we thought, let's do everything possible to keep these schools open. We want to make sure that every student in our school district has a really valuable educational experience. And we weren't necessarily able to do that at that time, so we put a lot of resources in that over the last 5 years. So some of the things that we did is we were hearing from staff and families that the students might not have all the experiences that we would want them to have. So one was combined classes. One of the things we know is when class sizes get really small. In the past, we were combining classes. So you might have 4th and 5th grade together, you might have kindergarten and 1st grade together, and that was not very popular. We had a ton of people open enrolling at other schools in the district saying that's not the experience I want for my child, they're not getting high enough level, very hard on staff. We did have a district-wide new curriculum in reading and in math, and that was very difficult for teachers to have to learn all that and then have to teach to ourselves. So we said, we are committed, we are going to give you enough teachers so that you have a teacher per grade level, even if that class was substantially smaller than other schools. So we really committed to that for 5 years, really trying to say, this is such a quality experience, please don't open enroll elsewhere, please come to the school and try to grow. We added, and this is funded completely through the school district, an after-school program that we partner with the Durango Library at Sunnyside Elementary. We also do the same thing for Rose Mesa. Because we didn't have enough students that our Boys and Girls Club program that other schools couldn't happen at Sunnyside. And so instead we've been funding that. Again, that's an expense. We're not sure how much longer we can do it. We've committed to that for next year. But that is something we also want to make happen because if parents had to go take their kids to another school that had after-school program because there was nothing, that's something that wasn't really fair. We also made sure that we have very high-quality instructional materials and all of the manipulatives and makerspace materials and everything for Sunnyside that we had done for every other school. We expanded the electives. 5 years ago, the school was given a number of staff, 15 to 1, and the school was figured out. So that meant that anything we were doing with art, basic PE, counseling, anything had to come out of that number. Now we've committed to every school will have a portion of the person for math, for art, for music, for PE, and for either STEM and tech. In addition, we made sure that there were talented services and English language development services. We gave the school full-time counselors starting 4 years ago to make sure that that resource was there. We gave the school a half-time instructional coach. And then we expanded the attendance down pretty exponentially over the years. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So what some of the points that then were considered when these committees, so we have the Financial Advisory Committee, the Budget Committee, and the long-range planning committee, as well as several other conversations that have happened about what is the best experience for students, how might we address this declining funding and declining enrollment, is we really need to look at enrollment trends first off. And this is all part of the process and the policy that the long-range planning committee has put together about what are all the kinds of areas we have to look at before we even make this recommendation. So obviously enrollment trends and what's happening in different parts of the district. Educational equity, how do we make sure we can get every single student a high quality experience? And that means, yes, having amazing staff, like the Sunnyside Elementary School, but also all those additional resources and opportunities. If we do make a decision about consolidation, like we're talking about here at Sunnyside, we would want to have a transition plan that involves families and students and staff. We do have to look at the fiscal impact in this case. And I'll get into this a little bit more too, what this includes, but around $750,000 impact every year if the school is closed. We also think there's some opportunities, and we've outlined this on my side, there's such a strategic opportunity. We have a brand new school coming. And obviously, we had a conversation that we thought structurally it was best to transition first. That has been taken out. We realized that was not okay with people. So it's not worth the transition to give that to kids, even for what we thought was the benefit of being able to all come to the school together. So that's out of this conversation. There is this opportunity at this brand new school where everybody can come and be part of and have a ton of great opportunities. And then also, obviously, we have to look at what our committees are recommending. And so, obviously, our financial advisory committee, the budget committee, and the long-range planning committee have made a unanimous decision. So this is an enrollment trend, and I just want to point out, as was pointed out before, correct, we were in the 90s for several years, and kind of stayed stable. But it is a decline. So when a school is around this 100 mark or 123 mark, that's when we have to start looking, and obviously it's not going back up. We've tried all these things, and it hasn't increased. So we are projecting 73. Now the board has charged us, and I'm very appreciative that the board is being so thorough in the statement of how important this decision is. So they continue to charge us with getting additional data. So for example, they've asked us for capacity for every school. Sunnyside right now, the next year will be at 19% capacity. The next highest school is Amos Valley, but they also have shared schools, so they're around 34% capacity. Fort Lewis Mesa is like 36%. It goes all the way up to Durango High School, about 80% capacity. So 19% capacity is kind of where we are right now. So the board charged us and said, we're hearing that maybe 73 doesn't seem like the right number. We want you to actually call families. And so every family was called, a current family at Sunnyside. And through that process, 56 families responded with, if my kid's going to be coming back, or doing something else, or moving, or going down, or whatever it is. We had 8 families who did not respond. So we just assumed every one of the children was coming back the next year. And we are actually, the numbers are lower than 73 when we add that up. So we will continue to monitor that and see where are those families coming from. If they are moving and they're in the process, possibly that, we'll keep track of that. So we are looking at that. This is the enrollment picture. It's really hard to see. I'm going to put back there of all of the schools. And so besides a few of our schools, Fort Lewis Mesa has been going up a little bit. Durango High School, Picture High School, they were limited by their space. They had a room of rented space, and now they'll have a larger space, so they should go up. We also have Miller Middle School just went up, but they're up about 60 students for this year. But for the most part, you can see it's down across the board. And there are a lot of reasons for that, and we talked a lot about that. The cost of housing is really hard on families with young children. through what's happening in the world with our students who maybe have moved out of country, obviously because many of those, and then also the birth rates are the lowest they've ever been. So that's all impacting. Our kindergarten class coming in is so much lower than our kindergarten class going on. And those birth rates. Shared school. I want to make sure you get shared school. That's our homeschool enrichment program. And I don't know if people know about that. So children who are homeschooled can, or families can enroll them in a shared school, and they come to enrichment, which is at Sunnyside Elementary School, enrichment teachers that we hire to either have 2 days of enrichment or 1 day. It can't be 4 classes. So we get half funding, so we actually have 56 kids in that program. So that's what that is. So it's part of Anna's salary. So I think you've seen this before. So right now we have 1 kindergarten student registered. And we know it's not, we may have more, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Obviously, 3 grade levels are slated to have fewer than 10 students, and in calling our families, we are about those numbers, and so you can see that projection. There was a question about, well, what about open enrollment? So the way open enrollment works in our district, just so you know, this has been going on for years. I think we have like 350 students who are open enrolled in our district. Either they're coming from New Mexico, which we'll talk a little bit about that, and then I have a lot of questions about the New Mexico funding. And then, or they come from Bayfield and Nashville, or in between schools, students wanting to open enroll in schools. And when a student asks to open enroll in a school, we have to take them if there's capacity in order of that request. We have to treat everyone fairly. It's the same way, non-discriminatory. We can't look at, oh, well, you have special needs, or we don't want you to come from that school, or you don't deserve this, or there's no, we can't. We have to take it in order of their application as long as there is room at that school. We don't have to hire more teachers. And so that's open enrollment. So right now we have 24 students, and this is for this year, this current year. 24 students who work in the Sunnyside borders, boundaries who go to other schools. These are the boundaries, and so if you look online, you can tell. So if people are thinking, what school do I go to? You can see online where those are. And I'm just going to show you the pink are the Sunnyside boundaries at this time. And the boundaries have been extended way up, in the Escalante area, all the way up to Blue Springs, close to Florida Mesa, to try and capture some of that enrollment. Somebody told me the other day that when we moved into the Rocket Point Park, they just assumed that was Park. And then realized, no, that's not, that's Sunnyside. So when those were created, it was districted to Sunnyside, just to try and expand the enrollment. Obviously, that's going to have an impact on if the board chooses not to consolidate. I just want to be really clear. Obviously, there have to be some risk because if a student is right next, and that would be our recommendation. So if a student is living right next to Blue Springs or the Escalante area, it would be really hard to say they're not going to that school. So I just wanted to show you where those boundaries are. So you can see the star at the top is where Blue Springs Elementary will be, and the star down here at the bottom is where right now is the farthest bus stop or the farthest south bus stop. Just so you get an idea of what that looks like. We were asked by the board to do more work on the transportation and bus rides. So transportation and Chris Coleman, our Chief Operations Officer, went back to the drawing board and said, we're taking Florida Mesa out of this conversation as far as the transition. But if we put all of the Florida Mesa students and all of the Sunnyside students going to Sunnyside, what does that then look like for transportation? That's for example, going to Blue Springs. What does that look like for transportation when we have buses? And so right now, we know that currently you have 21 students who ride the bus to Sunnyside. I just want to make sure everybody realizes that. But of the students who ride the bus, we have 6 would experience a shorter riding time, 14 would experience the longer riding time. 28 minutes will be the average ride time, which is an increase of about 10 minutes. And 0 will ride 60 plus minutes. And we do have, unfortunately, students throughout the district that are on the bus for more than 60 minutes. I live out in Vernon, and the students who live near me, they go to Riverview, because they have to go get picked up, they go that entire route, or let's say they're leaving Riverview and they have to go north first, all the way to Lemon, and down south before they get off at that Edgemont right there. Those kids are on the bus for 60 minutes, unfortunately. So we are trying hard throughout the district not to have that happen. The longest individual ride time would be 47 minutes, and the shortest individual ride time would be 6 minutes. So that's kind of where we are with the transportation. We talked a little bit about this, and I know obviously there are a lot of questions and a variety of answers, but when you look at the research on, and all of the different studies that are down here quoted, that as when you have classes of 4 to 9, there are some deficits in that. Not the 15. I mean, we all love to have classes of 15. We know that's the sweet spot, right? We try to keep our classes down as absolutely low as possible. Our cap sizes throughout the district are 18 for kindergarten, 21 for first grade, 22 for first grade, 24 for second and third, fourth grade is 26, and fifth grade is 27. And we would love to be able to say it's 15 everywhere. We can't do that. But we know 15 is awesome if we could do that. It's just not good. It's not good. But 4 to 9 is not advised. And a lot of different things. And I know we've heard a lot of personal stories about for different children, it really works really well. But overall, when you have fewer kids, so if you're 3 or 4 in kindergarten, there's going to be less different social development. Fewer flexible grouping options, so if the teacher wants to work with students who are more accelerated and advanced, and also some students that might be really struggling, it's really hard to be able to do that in a really small class. Healthy competition just meaning that we all make each other better. So the more we're like, I can do that, and so the more we keep pushing each other, it's harder in a really, really small class. And I am talking about the 4 to 9. The conversation that happens in class, you don't have a lot of students that contribute to that conversation. It becomes quite a bit. There's more social pressure, and there can become a parent contact me, had a conversation that said that it's a problem when there are cliques and there's nowhere to go. And so if your child in a smaller class or smaller school is not part of that clique, and there's not somewhere else to go, it can be hard. But then again, if you're all part of a team, like if you're about the second grade, right, and you're on a baseball team and you're not getting along so very well, that's great. But it could go even better. And it's hard with staffing because as you get smaller and smaller, and you do have to start doing combo classes, I feel bad for the staff because it's kind of like from year to year, you don't know for sure. And sometimes because of that, some staff might not want to go to a school that's a little bit more unpredictable or precarious. So just overall, what we said, some of those challenges then that can make it is, sort of limited your interaction, reduced really deep programs, and somewhat of an isolation. And if there was a way to come to this new school, then we hope that would provide broader programming and even more vibrant for your community, and would be sort of the founders of this new school, so they can make it what they want and be able to develop that. Now, we really tried to make sure people understood this wasn't a money decision, but finances do have something to do with this. We have to be when brought. Again, I wish I never was even having to talk with you about this. But we are at a point that this continues to come up as something, one of the factors we have to look at. We've increased some class sizes. We reduced a ton of district office positions. We have looked at, we cut every budget by 10%. We continue to look for every way to be efficient. We currently have some online programs for data and assessment and instructional planning, that we are actually creating our own instead. We're all getting together and creating our own programs so that we don't have to pay for those things. So we're looking at everything. But we do know that this would be a savings, closing the school, consolidating the school, of about $741,000 every year. So obviously over 10 years, that's $7.4 million. I wanted to make sure that we realize that still leaves money for the increased transportation costs that we did, and it's taking into consideration utilities to keep the library, to keep additional community programs that we do. So this is reducing utilities by 80%, but it still would include utilities so that we can continue those programs. Right. Even with that, it's about a $741,000 savings. But we do know, again, all of our committees said that is a factor, but if that was a factor and we could still do all of the things and didn't have really small classes and could do all the resources, it wouldn't be as big a factor. And you can see what's happening is that per pupil cost for Sunnyside is increasing. And I put on here so the per pupil revenue. So we get $11,800 per student. That's it. That's what we get per student to educate that student. And that pays for everything. That pays for busing, that pays for food service, nutrition, that pays for utilities, that pays for curriculum materials, everything. We don't get more than $11,800 per student. And so we have schools that are right around that, especially our elementary schools, right around that 11,000. We have schools that are big, like Durango High School, it's around 9,000. So that's good. But anytime we get over that 11,000, we're not getting that money in the state. So that's coming from somewhere. And so when we're at 25,000 a student, I mean, obviously that's 14,000 more than we're getting for the state. And I was asked, I just want to make sure people know this. We want to increase our enrollment exponentially, and we are very welcoming to our students who come from other states. In fact, our finance director found out we are the district that has the most students from the state in the state. And so we love our New Mexico students. Just so you know, New Mexico gives us no money for those students. We get the $11,800 from Colorado for any student who comes into our schools, but we do not get more than $11,800. And so I just wanted to make sure everybody realized that, because I've got a lot of questions about the funding of students from New Mexico and where that comes from. So I'm happy to talk about that later. So we have a couple other things that do play into the fiscal impact. So obviously that every year the $741,000. We also have $3.6 million that's allocated for the maintenance cost and the bond, and that is for it to get it up to par to continue to make it a school for little kids. Right? We would not have to spend all that if we had another use for the building. But that is allocated at this point. It wouldn't happen until the 28th or 29th school year. Summer 28th. So it's not happening yet, but that would be there. And then the same thing with, obviously, 3 Springs Elementary furniture grew out. And so we've been working with the bond money to put new furniture in every elementary school. So again, if the school stays open, obviously we would also make sure Sunnyside had that new furniture, and that would be $168,000. That would also happen in a couple of years. And so I wanted to explain, because I don't know that everybody understood. So these are the 3 committees, and the Long Range Planning Committee actually met last night and is supporting this. They have talked about this decision for the last 5 years. And really started looking at consolidation and making this recommendation about the last year or 2. But I want to just tell you what these 3 committees do so that you know. So the Budget Committee is the fiscal planning body that reviews, analyzes, and recommends actions to ensure a balanced budget. We have teachers, staff, committee members, administrators, I think maybe 50, 60 people people are on this committee, and it functions to increase transparency and provide input from lots of different folks. This year, the budget committee was tasked with reducing expenses by $2 million to balance the budget. So after we got out of our negotiations with staff last summer, when we agreed to the compensation increase, we were at $4 million deficit in order to do that. So the only way that we can pay for those increases was to reduce our expenses by $4 million. We are legally required to have a balanced budget. And so what happened is we reduced 12.6 district office positions, we reduced every budget in the department, all departments, by 10%. And then then this year had to find additional, we took some money out of reserves that we knew that could continue. And then this year, that's why we had to go back and look at what are some other ways to reduce our expenses. And that was what the budget committee was really tasked to do, is look at every single thing there could be. So for example, one thing they looked at was class sizes, and they made some recommendations. They looked at staff structures, that's where we got to having an additional 18 district office positions. They also, school consolidation was a big one, and then our different salary schedules. And they haven't seen a ton of difference if we changed our salary schedule. They also looked at fees, and that is definitely not popular right now, to increase fees in a lot of families. So we wanted to make sure that those are all the things that they looked at. The Financial Advisory Committee is actually an official committee of the board. Every single school district in the state of Colorado has a FAC, or Financial Advisory Committee, and a DAC, District Accountability Committee. The FAC is a citizen-led group that reviews district budgets, monitors financial operations, and advises the board to ensure fiscal transparency and soundness. And everybody on that Financial Advisory Committee is a finance person. That's what they do for work. Whether they're a banker, they're a loan officer, they're an accountant, treasurer, that's who's on this committee. And some of them have been on for 5 or 6 years. And then the Long Range Planning Committee is an advisory body responsible for analyzing data, assessing village facility needs, and making recommendations to boards. They address enrollment trends, school capacity, and capital improvements. So our Long Range Planning Committee has membership that varies every time, 30, 35 people. And some of them have been on there for the last 5 years or more. They also represent lots of people in the community. So these are the 3 committees that have had to wrestle with this idea and provide this information. And so we have revised, I just want to see that we feel like this, we talk about strategic opportunity. We revised this, we listened, we heard our best intentions of trying to bring everyone together. We heard you, that's 3 transitions. So it's not worth it, right? We don't want to do that. So instead, this is about how do we come when we have this new school that is very close to the boundaries of Sunnyside, that's not going to cause the transportation issue, that we can all kind of plan together over the next 2 years. And so our recommendation then is that over the next 2 years, we all come together. Not because we have to be at school in the same place, but that there be tons of planning, there be lots of field trips together, and collaboration among teachers and staff. And then together we would co-create that culture and then move into the And so, just the basics of a transition plan, we would want to make sure that we all feel like this is an established community all together. Just put it there. We'd also want to make sure there's lots of communication throughout about this is what's happening, here's a get together, and let's all come together to choose the mascot. And what about the colors? And let's figure out how we're going to use the playground and all those types of things. And then we also want to make sure that we are following all of our laws and our guidelines, and we really consider staff because we are very concerned to make sure that our staff are in a really good place and that happens over the next years. And then a couple of things that, and it's been interesting. I've had some people contact me when we talked about this, and in fact, we've got some people who are already like community members who are already saying they're going to donate to that, but I don't want that to happen. I could be a partner, so this wouldn't cost the district anything, in having a possible agriculture center at Sunnyside, a community center keep the library, obviously, such a lifeblood of that community as well, and also making sure that the library needs to expand. And then having a lot of our agriculture programs. We know how much of how important that is to our community and our workforce, and we don't really have a program. We have an agriculture program at Durango High School, but there's no room to grow crops, there's no room to raise animals and livestock. And so if we had a place that we could do more of that, and just like we're doing an Icon Center for other types of trades, this could be a place for the agriculture trades. And have also a place for 4-H teams, and also a place for our FFA teams to really have their space. So we could, and then we could have those kinds of partnerships with our local community and our farmers. And also, as more and more automation and robotics is infused in much of agriculture, for our students to really be at the cutting edge. How can I continue to keep the family farm? How can I continue to do this for a living? Knowing what is the newest types of technologies and the newest types of practices. And so that's some of the things we're talking about. We also maybe employee housing, but the agriculture seems to be the one that's the most exciting. All right, so that is a little bit of the revision.
Thank you, Dr. Chester. As I said before, I'm going to read the rules for public participation. We had our sign-ups, and the sign-ups are closed now. Okay, the sign-ups are closed, so if you've already signed up, you'll be invited up according to the sign-up to speak. The board asks that comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Time will be monitored by a timer up here, so keep your eye on that. And when the time expires, the speaker is permitted to complete a sentence, but should make no further remarks. The board wants to remind everybody that public comment submissions may not be related to personnel matters. And the board will also like to remind you all that we will not tolerate slander, name calling, or public defamation of any individual. The public comments to the board are public records, so if you have any information that you'd like to keep private, names, addresses, phone numbers, please exclude those from your comments. We'd also like to remind everyone that possession of drugs or controlled substances and deadly weapons, as defined by state law, are prohibited on school grounds and in this building. All speakers and those in attendance shall conduct themselves in a non-disruptive manner, so we ask that you not do any cheering or snapping or clapping or other distractions during or upon completion of any public comment. The board will listen with respect and those to address the board and the audience to do the same. And as I said before, if you have additional questions or information that you want to share and you didn't get a chance to sign up for public comment, you can email us at schoolboard@durangoschools.org. And also on your sheets this evening, there is a flyer that has an access link to a public comment online form that we have going on right now. And you may fill that out as well and submit through that. So thank you so much for being here, and I'm going to run back and invite the first speaker.
Tonight will be Andrea Morrison. Sorry, I'm saying your last name. I wasn't quite sure what direction I'd be facing, so this is welcome, Andrea. You'll have 3 minutes once you state your first and last name.
Okay. My name is Andrea Guttormson, and I'm the principal at Florida Mesa. So I thought I'd be facing the other direction, but I wanted just to welcome family, friends, and teachers and students of both the Florida Mesa and Sunnyside communities. This is a bit of a roller coaster that we've been on here. I'm part of the Long Range Planning Committee. That's obviously part of the Florida Mesa community, as both the principal and a parent. But when we started conversations in our committee, things lived in different silos. So there was a conversation of what to do on the budget committee. When this came up around Sunnyside, I thought this lived here. As it has progressed through community conversation, through a lot of heartfelt comments from people, some of which are very true, some of them are very much missing context. It's taken on a public narrative that has really put us in a position that I didn't expect to be in, with feeling a bit defensive around our school and our community. So we've really been trying to both put ourselves in the shoes of our Sunnyside neighbors and families, while standing really firm and confident that we are doing the work at Florida. A lot of us choose to bring our kids here, and that we really love our community. So with that, I just want the message of people here tonight is one of empathy and commitment. So to the Sunnyside community, like it's been stated already, we really acknowledge and respect the advocacy and vulnerability that you've shown in supporting your children. It is clear that generations of love have been poured into your school. We recognize that for many of you, this is deeply personal, and the possibility of closing your building feels like a disruption to your very history. We see that, and we honor it. Second, I want to be clear about our presence here tonight. We are not here to convince, recruit, or defend. We are here as educators. Regardless of the board's decision to transition Sunnyside now, later, or never, Florida Mesa, and eventually our Three Springs community, is one that is growing. In preparation for the future, our team is doing what we do best. We're refining our academics, strengthening our social-emotional supports, and growing our parent community. Our roots are very much rooted and carry deeply for our students and meeting them exactly where they are. We stand ready to embrace every student and adult who joins our community, whether that happens now or in the years to come. As we listen to your input tonight, please know this. If our schools come together, we will be intentional in integrating the shared values of our unique communities. Our goal is to continually improve our practices in developing a welcoming and inclusive community to support all of our students. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Kara Becker.
She's not present.
Okay.
Oh, she emailed us.
Okay. The next speaker is Caitlin Tuck.
State your first and last name.
Good evening, my name is Caitlin Tuck, and I want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak. I'm a parent of 5, 4 of which currently attend Sunnyside Elementary. I appreciate that the board has recognized the harm of moving students twice and is reconsidering that plan. That matters, and it shows we're listening. I want to explain why closing Sunnyside and moving the students to the new Three Springs school still creates serious long-term problems for our district. One of the primary reasons given for the decision is declining enrollment tied to lower birth rates. But a temporary decline does not mean a permanent trend. People have not stopped having children, and we are seeing clear signs of growth. There are 2 new housing subdivisions being developed right now, one just a mile from Sunnyside, the second just 4 miles away. Not to mention the countless expanding neighborhoods and the fact families are continuing to move into the area. Durango is expanding and growing. The Three Springs School is being designed with a capacity of about 400 students. Florida Mesa and Sunnyside together already account for roughly 380 students. That leaves very little room for growth. We are essentially planning for a full school on day 1 with no room for the future. So what happens when more families move into Three Springs to be near the new school and in the boundaries, as they already are? We will have created a situation where the district has no flexibility, no available space, and no neighborhood school to absorb that growth. At that point, the district will be forced into another difficult and costly decision. Keeping Sunnyside open preserves that flexibility. It allows the district to respond to growth instead of reacting to overcrowding later. I also wanted to address the issue of cost savings. We are being told this decision is necessary to reduce expenses and save a relatively small portion of the budget. At the board meeting on April 28th, the head of facility stated that there are still an ongoing struggle to get bus drivers and transportation in general. At the same time, there's a plan to purchase 3 new electric school buses. With the funds it would take to buy just 1 of these electric buses, we could buy 3 conventional buses. And with the funds it would take to purchase 3, we could almost completely cover the cost to run Sunnyside for 2 school years. That raises an important question. Are we making decisions based on long-term student needs or short-term financial optics? We are making difficult financial decisions that should prioritize preserving student access and long-term capacity. Because if 1% of a budget is too expensive to save a school, how can you justify spending that same money on buses? Closing a school is permanent expenses. Cost-saving measures should be carefully aligned with what actually benefits the student. Sunnyside is not just a building, it is a functioning, stable school that is meeting students' needs today. Closing it does not solve a problem, it creates new ones. Capacity limits, future overcrowding, loss of flexibility in a growing community, and longer bus routes for all of the district. I ask you to consider not just the next year or two, but the next 10. Because once Sunnyside is closed, that option is gone. If enrollment rises again, and all signs suggest it will, the question won't be whether we needed Sunnyside. The question will be why we gave it up. Thank you.
Next is Garrett Olszewski.
Determined to make it all the way through this time. Try.
Welcome, Garrett. You'll see the first and last name and then you'll have 3 points.
Okay. Hi, my name is Garrett Olszewski, and I'm a Sunnyside parent. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak again. I do want to say thank you very much for removing the Florida Mesa transition year from the recommendation. When my son was in the 2nd grade, that was a major portion of what called me into the discussion. He would have been one of the students that was most directly affected by that. But removing that part of the plan does not make the rest of the recommendation any stronger. It only makes it easier to actually see what is left. And if the district is going to recommend closing a rural school, the bar to justify that closure must be very high. At this point, the recommendation seems to come down to 3 things: low enrollment, the idea that very small class sizes are bad, and the financial savings. I do not think we are meeting that bar. The district's own financial advisory committee said the savings are not great. The district's own materials said they are about 1% of the budget, and that closure is much bigger conversation than financial savings alone. Much bigger conversation. Additionally, if the financial pressure is now, the closure in 28 and 29 does not resolve that problem. The low enrollment argument is also not settled. We saw new facts that I would like the opportunity to be able to respond to. If that new proposal and the justifications for it could be released, we should have an opportunity to comment on that. The district also kept leaning on the unusually small 3rd and 4th grade classes as a result of COVID. Under the revised timeline, those students will be in middle school, and they're not impacted by this change. That makes the recommendation much weaker. Parents in those grades also described the extra attention and support as a benefit, not a problem, that cannot be easily discounted. The district has already made investments in Sunnyside that families and staff say are helping, and there's still more we can do. Clearly communicate. Sunnyside is not closing down. Directly engage Rocket Point and Edge families. Continue stronger outreach to New Mexico and other out-of-district families. The district also should not assume future enrollment pictures only include Sunnyside, Florida Mesa, and 3 Springs. Sunnyside closes, those boundary students will not disappear. Rocket Point and Edge still need to be accounted for in a real way. Transportation also has become a much larger issue. The new information is that 24 enrolled, or not 24, so we need an opportunity to comment against the new information because it's not clear. So originally there were more people that were infected in middle school and in high school for the busing. That was not mentioned today in this presentation that I heard. So my ask is simple. Do not treat removing Florida Mesa move here as proof that the closure now makes sense. It does not. It only removes the most obvious disruption. On the bigger question, enrollment, savings, transportation, and student benefit, I still do not think this district has met the high bar required to justify closing Sunnyside. Thank you.
Next we have Holly Olszewski. Sorry, Holly? Yeah. Welcome, Holly. You'll say your first and last name and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Holly. I'm a Sunnyside parent as well.
this session today. We really do appreciate your time and the opportunity to have our voices heard. I won't repeat everything that has been shared, but I do want to say, even with the recent change in reputation, the underlying issue, the full closure of Sunnyside, remains deeply concerning. We're grateful that you listened and adjusted the recommendation of the transition. The focus of the Florida Mesa consolidation was the most immediate concern of the previous meeting, which is why the community centered on that in your comments previously. I know not every Sunnyside parent and community member is able to come back to me to re-express the thoughts on the new recommendation. The most recent email, well, the one before the most recent one, focused on the budgetary reasons for closure. However, from the previous meetings, we understood that the closure would only save a small portion of the overall budget. With that in mind, and the information tonight, it is a little bit confusing, I think, to the community if all of the increased costs, or if the increased costs with transportation, reassignment of teachers and staff, continued maintenance of the Sunnyside building, potential building of the Ag building, those sorts of things would actually make up for the closure of Sunnyside. The impact of the closure on students, families, and the community would be significant and lasting. Eliminating an entire school for such a limited financial gain does not seem like a full solution, especially when all the costs and disruptions are associated with the consolidation are taken into account. Sunnyside's small class sizes and community provide a real and lasting benefit to students and support an active, engaged learning. Community would like to keep Sunnyside open, as you can see from the large turnout at last week's meeting. For all these reasons, I respectfully urge the board to strongly consider keeping Sunnyside open. That ends our public comment for now. And Dr. Jesse, you wanted to mention something about this?
Just to answer some questions. First of all, the new three-star school will hold 550 students. It's a 3-point track, so that's 550 students. So not 400, so I just want to make sure people are aware of that. We did get a major, the largest electric bus grant of $900,000, and that's what's paying for almost all, like 90% of the buses. We're able to get 3 buses for the price of one conventional diesel bus, just so everyone's aware. I don't know an article about that and we got that. I also just want to say, the Financial Advisory Committee did not say that $750,000 a year was not substantial, but we think that they were very clear that should never be the only reason. So I want to make sure that we that funding. And then I'll make sure, thank you, Mr. Brzezinski. I only put the elementary, but I'm going to let you, I'll tell you the middle and high, and then we will put that on our information that's on our website. So of the 85 unique registered riders that ride buses from Sunnyside to either Sunnyside or Escalante or Durango High School, there are 30 high school students who ride the bus. 29 will experience shorter ride times. This has to do with where the hub is and the transfer station. So there are actually 29 of the 30 will experience shorter ride times. 0 will experience longer ride times. 40 minutes is the average ride time. That's a reduction of 13 minutes from what they're doing now. 0 will ride over 60 minutes. Longest individual ride time will be 57 minutes, and the shortest individual ride time will be 20 minutes. For middle school, there are 34 middle school students who ride from the Sunnyside Boundaries to Escalante. 9 will experience shorter ride times, 21 will experience longer ride times. 30 minutes is the average ride time, which is a reduction of 2 minutes on average. No one is going to ride 60 minutes or more. The longest ride is going to be 46 minutes, and the shortest time is 14 minutes. And so we'll make sure we put this out there too, so everybody has it. And again, that was, I'm so thankful the board pushed us and said, hey, we can do better, so that we went back to the drawing board, completely redid routes, and actually found a way to make it much less. I think those were the things, just want to make sure.
For everyone, that concludes
concludes our evening tonight. Thank you all for coming. As I said, please email us at schoolboard@durangoschools.org or fill out the online form that is you have a link to on the flyers on your seats. Thank you so much.
Do you mind clarifying if the meeting is on the 11th, is what I heard you say, but I thought it was the 12th.
Sorry.
I just want to make sure. Tuesday night is.
I might have missed.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Well,
Sorry for yelling.
Tuesday the 12th, yes. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, May 12th at Animas Valley Elementary School, and there will be a decision for the board to consider at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you.